Elizabeth!
Yes?
I'm worried.
Why?
I'm worried the Whoathon will never be the same again.
Is that because you've got your terrible children involved?
No, although they are terrible. No, that's not why I'm worried. I'm worried the Whoathon will never be the same again because it dawns on me that I don't think ever again will we have an episode where nothing happens. Because when you've got a 4 or a 6-part story, or a 3-part story even,
Well, there is 72 yards.
Ooh, foreshadowing. Oh, right, yeah. There's always so much to talk about with these videos now, and I feel as if I could go on for hours and hours and hours, but you don't want that. So let's just talk and see what happens. I thought, upon this watching The Unquiet Dead, so I'm throwing things for the dog, that it's absolutely bloody marvellous. And I was somewhat surprised because it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be a blockbuster episode by any stretch of imagination. It's an important episode. It's our first travel trip backwards in time, which is obviously of major significance for a time travel programme. And obviously, the third story in, you should be starting to sort of get a feel for these characters, this Doctor and Companion, you know, and in the new run. And you do, I mean, these two have just settled into this utterly beautifully. There is something very singular about Eccleston's Doctor. Weirdly, he reminds me of McCoy in a peculiar way. For a different reason, but in the same way that McCoy felt dangerous sometimes, I think Eccleston feels dangerous. He's not prepared to sugarcoat things, and the whole stuff about getting used to a new morality and this, that and the other. Even the part in the cellar where he thinks he's going to die, and he's almost self-pitying, like a baby.
Yeah, like, what about me?
Yeah,
I'm more important. It shows that it's got a sort of hierarchy of people who are important, though. He's quite happy to sacrifice Gwen. It's a different time. She believes they're angels, blah, blah, blah. But him, he's been to these fabulous places. He's had this sort of input. He's more... Why should he die like this?
Well, I think...
Typical bloody man.
Well, he's a broken...
Typical bloody Time Lord.
He's a broken man. And being a broken man, I think that you know, you later justify those sorts of things. But there is that sort of, the same that Hartnell had to a certain extent, McCoy, that sort of sense of, he's not all happiness and light, this Doctor chap. There is some element of risk involved. Like Colin Baker as well, I suppose. Oh, a little grin over there.
You saw the light.
I do, I love it. But I genuinely feel that this pair have really settled into being an absolutely A1 TARDIS team. And Billie Piper takes a lot of the credit for that because she is absolutely brilliant at selling the wonder and the mystery of it. There's only one time ever, really, in the series that they've done this before, and that, of course, is Hartnell. Because we, as a viewer, after this point, you know, your average non-Who, we'll just take it for granted that how wonderful this is and yes, we can do this. But Billie Piper is selling this so hard and it works so beautifully. I had forgotten what a contained little story this is. Yes, Dusty, I will get the door for you. It's a really contained little story. There's really only 5 people in it, to any great extent. And, of course, the Gelf, who are a force, an entity. But in terms of the drama on display, there's 5 people in it. And it hangs together really quite well as a simple Doctor Who story, which this is. It is a simple Doctor Who story. With the added complication that we have our celebrity historical, because we've got the mighty Charles Dickens. You can't argue with Simon Callow, who's made a career of playing Charles Dickens, as well as a career of doing other things as well. You know, not underselling Simon Callow, and I do really like Simon Callow.
Yeah, you can't undersell.
No, I'm not. But he has. He's like.
His performance in Four Weddings. Oh my God, I'm going to find out.
But he really embodies Dickens in a lot of different things, and I really love this performance. It feels very rounded. He obviously appreciates Charles Dickens in a way that most people don't. So it's nice for him to be able to bring that to screen in a different context. And it really works well here. Really works well. And the way that Eccleston plays off it, and he's absolutely delighted to see him, but doesn't give him an easy ride. In fact, he gives him a harder ride because he expects more of Charles Dickens than he does of your average man on the street. Your Gwens of the world, or your Gwyneths of the world, for example.
Yeah, it's just called the same names, isn't it?
Gwyneth. It's very strange seeing her, isn't it? Because I love Gwen as a character.
I do as well. I don't think it's strange seeing her.
It was odd. I love that scene as well with Gwyneth and Rose. Gwyneth. When it starts off being all happiness and light and Rose being particularly cheeky, and then of course we get the mention of the bad wolf, the big bad wolf, and that sent a shiver down my spine. It's one of those funny things, isn't it, as well, that you can only really truly appreciate in retrospect, because we know the significance of bad wolf, a phrase that has floated around Doctor Who, well, for ages now, up until Sutek. And that was the warning, wasn't it? Writing bad wolf is a bloody great big Sutek on top of the TARDIS when they've written bad wolf on it. He is a jackal, but there we go. I just think that in terms of, I mean, how are we going to talk this? Should we talk about this in kayfabe? This Doctor, this dangerous, broken Doctor, has found Rose, is absolutely loving this new lease on life because he's able to live it through a companion once again. I think he's still finding his feet with that. And we're getting more revelations about the Time War, which obviously we know about, but we didn't at the time. But you can appreciate as much luck as judgment, I think. But the fact that Eccleston comes into this knowing that he's a scarred individual, and his relationship with Rose is one of the things that's going to put him back together again. And meanwhile, Rose, who clearly has potential in a way that other people perhaps don't, or perhaps other people do, I don't know. But she's made to soar through this relationship. I love the nod to Cardiff. It's really charming and very meta, a very Russell T Davies thing to be doing. I absolutely love that sort of thing. And whether that was just a conceit for the lols or just the fact they knew they'd get Welsh actors and actresses in, I do not know.
The Welsh agenda.
The Welsh agenda, indeed. Stop it, Dusty. I will return to you in a moment. Essentially, this is a great episode of Doctor Who. Not a brilliant episode of Doctor Who, potentially, but a really, really good episode of Doctor Who. And if this is the average of what Doctor Who's going to be from here on in for a while, we're in for an absolute treat and a half. But again, no more boring episodes. You know, they'll either be bad, good, or no, that's not right. No more episodes where nothing happens, that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm a bit overwhelmed. 3 for 3.